Hi, I'm Peggy. Thanks for joining me. I hope you and yours are well. Today I'd like to discuss with you care for the Scindapsus Treubii Moonlight. A major grower recently mass-produced and released these plants into the market at big box stores. So this is a plant that in the recent past has been kind of pricey and hard to get your hands on. Now it is more readily available and will continue to be more readily available as it is propagated and sold, etc. With a little knowledge about this plant, anyone can successfully grow the Scindapsus Treubii Moonlight. Before I get into the details, I do want you to know that this plant is toxic to pets as well as humans. If you have any experience with Scindapsus, you will know that one issue people have with them is identifying them, telling them apart. Is it a Scindapsus exotica, Silvery Ann, Argyraeus? Well, you'll have none of that problem with the Scindapsus Treubii Moonlight. It's not like its speckled cousins. As you can see here, it's easily identified by the oval-shaped leaf with green and silver. I mean, you could probably spot one of these across the room after just seeing this video. I've had this Treubii for about a year now. I purchased it online, and when I received it, it did not have roots. It took an extremely long time for me to root this plant. I don't know if that's the norm, but that was my experience. I know this is said to be a slow-growing plant, but as you can see from what I received and what the plant looks like now, it's growing at a pretty decent rate. So it doesn't grow fast like a pothos or anything like that, but if your plant is growing slowly, don't get discouraged because once it gets going, it really starts producing those leaves. The Scindapsus moonlight is native to the tropical jungles of Southeast Asia. This plant is a climber. So given the right encouragement, these plants can get up to 8 feet tall with leaves 4 to 15 inches long. So the sooner you can mount your Treubii on a moss pole, the better. If your plant is small like mine, rather than having a huge elaborate moss pole, I like to use these little moss sticks. I'll have a link below in the description box to everything I use in this video, as I always do. If you've never mounted a plant, no worries, it's just as easy as you just saw here. Now let's get into the care, starting with humidity. Since this is a rainforest plant, it does like humidity. This plant presently stays in an area where the humidity level is between 50 and 60. I've kept it in an area much lower and it did just fine. Now on to watering. I do not water my Treubii Moonlight until I have checked it with a moisture meter in several places and the meter is reading dry. I do let this plant dry out. And with time, you can kind of tell what your different plants need. I do use this with all of my plants. Another way you can tell is by how light the pot is and also when the leaves start curling. Because I have some plants that don't do well with tap water, I run all of my water through my zero water filter and then put it in a jug. Now, this plant, however, does well with tap water. It all depends on the quality of your tap water and what minerals, etc. your water has. So if it's not doing well with the tap water, try some distilled or maybe some filtered water. I am a bottom waterer with pretty much all of my plants. So what that entails is I just take a bowl, pour my water in, then I'll take the pot and set it in the bowl and watch. It's almost overflowing when I set this in here, but this water goes down really quickly because the plant is thirsty. The soil is pretty dry. You see how quickly that went down? I will leave this plant, this pot in the water for about 5 minutes, and then I will take it out, let it drain very well, and then I'll set it on the saucer, keeping an eye on it and making sure that any excess water that ends up in that saucer that I dump out, because you want the soil to be able to dry out. Leaving the pot sitting in water can lead to root rot. Now, I water this plant maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, but I live in the Florida Keys where it's very humid and we leave our air conditioners on year round. Maybe 5 days a year they're off. You have to take into consideration your climate, your environment, in order to determine how frequently you need to water your plant. If you're running air, the soil stays wet longer. If you're running heat, it dries out faster. The Treubii Moonlight is a flexible, forgiving plant. In terms of soil, it's no different. It's pretty flexible. It will work with anything that is fast drying. Aroid mix, succulent mix, a light household potting mix, all of those will do. Just make sure you have a nice drainage hole in your pot and that the soil dries out within a reasonable amount of time. If your mixture is holding too much water, you may want to add some perlite to help with drainage. If it seems to be drying out too quickly, you may want to add more soil so that it can hold on to the moisture longer. On to lighting. The Scindapsus Treubii Moonlight thrives in bright indirect lighting. However, it does well also in partial shade. My Treubii Moonlight stays over here in my plant nook, and it is in a south-facing window. Yes, in Florida. However, as you can see, there are blinds which I always keep closed. However, enough bright light comes through there that this plant thrives. It's doing very well. I will, however, keep an eye on it to just make sure that none of the leaves are getting burnt or anything like that, especially as summer comes. Now, if you don't have a bright corner like this in your house or a bright window, you can always use supplemental lighting like a grow light. Now, there are a lot of fertilizers out there. I'm not here to debate fertilizers with you. I'm just telling you what I do. I fertilize every time I water my plants. I use the fertilizer at 1/4 strength and I add it to my water bottle. Now, I'm a basic person when it comes to my plants and I like to do what's inexpensive if possible. I use Miracle Grow all-purpose plant food. Yes, and I just add it to my jug and every time I water, it's already in there. If you are someone who fertilizes during growing season, make sure you're paying attention to your Treubii. If the plant is actively growing, then it will definitely benefit from being fertilized. I can definitely say I saw a difference as soon as I started fertilizing this plant. And that wasn't until it had a nice root system. Something I want to stress, the calendar does not tell you when the growing season is for your plant. If your Treubii is actively growing, then it's the growing season, whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. And that's about it for the Scindapsus Treubii. What are you waiting for? Go grab one. Go get yours. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.